Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Today we're going to be building another American World War II vehicle. This is the GMC M10 from Academy Models. It came out not too long ago, and it'll be a nice addition to our collection of American armor. So let's get started on it. As we start the lower hull, you'll notice that the piece is a bathtub style hull, so it's pretty much the sides and the sponsons, all that molded in together. There are a couple of little add-on pieces that I'll show you right here that you need to get on there as well for the front drive sprocket and then the return idler in the back here. But oops, sorry about that. That goes on really easily. Now what I'm going to show you is I assembled one of the bogie wheels, and the way they've got these actually work. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to keep them that way, because it might be more of a pain once we go to, because I like to build it static, so this might just be kind of a pain getting tracks on. But I'm going to leave them static for right now, and I'm going to show you how to put one of them together rather than showing you all 6 of them, because they all go together exactly the same. Now keep in mind there is 3 left and 3 right, which do have different parts. So I pulled all the parts off the sprue and sanded and did all this stuff already, so we shouldn't have a problem when I've separated. Also keep in mind too, this is the type of plastic, although this is really smooth right here, it has a tendency to look like it's kind of roughed up really badly, but it is very smooth. I already tried it out, and it looks fine once you wet it. So the drive sprockets are just an A and B. They go together real simple. The road wheels will have a little pin inside. They have a front and back to the piece, and you just want to line up the little nub inside there to make sure it fits in there properly. And I'll show you how these go together so we can keep them workable. Actually, that one doesn't have the back on it. This one does. And to keep them working, you want to just mainly glue the inside pieces. And some of you may want to keep them working for down the road. Like I said, I'm going to play it by ear and see if it's worthwhile. And I'm leaving the glue off of this side, and this is just to keep the road wheel going. I don't want any extra glue to get inside there and fuse the wheel together until I know for sure if we want to do that or not. And then it's just a matter of putting this piece in. This is the only part that's a tiny bit difficult, just getting my fingers to work on it, and it's putting this little buffer springs in here. And it's just because of where it is. I'll kind of show you from the side. There it goes. And it's just getting it around because it's kind of awkward to get my fingers on it. But once that's in there like that, it goes together fine. Put a little glue in here and here. Turn roller goes on there and glues that together. Now this seam right here, I'm going to put a little extra glue on. We will sand it down quite a bit and get it fairly smooth, but keep in mind the spring that goes on top is going to cover all that up, so we're not going to go too crazy on getting that together. So I'm going to go build 5 more of these, and we'll move on to the next step. In this portion of the build, I am building up the transmission housing, because this kit actually does come with a certain amount of the interior, which is including the transmission up front, the radio operators area, as well as the driver's compartment. Now this will all have to be painted an interior color because it's actually not seen from the air, whereas the interior of the M10 from the top, like in the fighting compartment, will be painted the same color as the outside. Wanted to give you guys a quick little update on the suspension. I assembled one of the sets of tracks and put it on, and doing so, the bogie on the front and back, the front and very back wheel would rise up because of the tightness of the tracks. So I went ahead and just glued these two down so that they don't have it, so when it'll sit perfectly flat like that. As we begin to do the back half of the hull, Academy includes with you the firewall and all the insides for the engine compartment. It doesn't have an engine inside of it, but all of the parts to go around the engine bay are there, including the fuel tanks in the back. I did have a slight little problem with some fit right around mating up those firewalls to this back firewall, and that may have been because I had slightly put this one a little bit too far back, but it was minor and I was able to just sand it off on the edge right there. But these pieces all in the back here fit very, very well. Now that we have the lower hull completed, we can start work on the upper part of the hull. And it's pretty straightforward. And because I told you they have the whole engine well built in there, these louvers up on the top deck are also able to be opened. So if you do decide you want to put a aftermarket engine inside, that would be pretty easy to go ahead and do. And then the last piece that goes on the front here, make sure you get plenty of glue on this area. I've kind of skipped ahead a little bit here for you guys. Building the rest of the turret was pretty straightforward, no problems at all, just kind of easy and went together. What I did was I went and sprayed the entire model with our shadow coat slash prep coat in this. Just I wanted to check over everything to make sure everything looked good on it, because sometimes when you have just the plastic, you can't really see if there's a flaw or not. So I've gone over it and I think it looks pretty good for what we need to do for it. Now I plan on doing this one in an Anzio color scheme, which was a olive drab and like a sand yellow color as a camouflage pattern. So first coat we'll put on will be the sand yellow. We'll do not the entire thing, but big chunks of it, and then we'll go back over and fill in with the olive drab. Okay, I'm going to use XF59 Desert Yellow as our yellow striping on here. I just put a piece of paper inside here just to keep any of it from getting on the suspension. The suspension wasn't camouflaged at all. So we'll go ahead and start putting our stripes on. Now that we have our dark yellow on, I'm going to mix a 80% XF62 with 20% of the actual color that we have on here to make a little lightened, olive drab. And we're going to fill in all the areas on that now. I've sprayed the entire model now with a lacquer clear coat, and now we're going to begin to put the decals in place on this. And the decals that are included on this kit too are really nice cartograph decals, and in fact you get quite a few different varieties. So lots of extras. This is a great thing to throw in your spares box. And this front one's the only one that's going to be the slightest. And only by slightly, I mean just lining up the cutouts around it. We're going to let that dry, and then we're going to go ahead and put a couple of coats of microsol on it to soften it, to make sure it soaks down in there. Plus we're going to have decals all over the inside. We are going to paint the interior on this as well. Just didn't get to that yet. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the decals on now. As I was telling you earlier, we're going to be putting multiple coats of microsol on this kit because there's lots of little things that we want to get the decal to lay down as flat as possible. And microsol is just a decal softener, and there's a couple little things you need to watch out for as you're putting it on. Is that it's going to soften the decal quite a bit. So after you put a little coat of it on, you really want to walk away from it because it's very easy to tear a decal after you've let this sit on for a few seconds, because it softens it tremendously. So just want to brush one little light coat on and just let it dry. Now it is going to probably wrinkle a little bit on the edge or in the middle, and don't worry about that, and don't try to fix it. Just let it dry out, and then you're going to want to put a second coat on, and possibly up to like 4 or 5 coats, and I'll show you when we come back really what it does to the decal. We've let the decals dry, and we put about 6 coats on here to get them to really lay down flat over all the little bumps on here. I also clear coated them twice with 2 coats of the tester spray lacquer. This is dull coat, so it doesn't have a super shine to it. Now we're going to use our Vallejo rust stain and streaking kit, starting off with our little German camouflage black brown, and we're just going to begin to start doing some chipping. We're going to kind of beat this vehicle up a little bit, look like it's really been used quite a bit. Now we added just a touch of water to the Vallejo paint, and then just taking the tiniest amount, just want to get a little bit on the tip of the brush to start creating our scratches. And obviously this is completely up to you how many scratches you put on it, how beat up you want it, but I am going to do a little bit more than normal, but not crazy. And definitely even do the green, even though it's not showing up super probably well on the camera, you do see subtle little tones of it. Okay, now we're going to add a little bit of rust staining onto it, and we're going to use a little bit of Vallejo's Panzerace's light rust. and just putting some small amount of dots, not too heavy. And then we're going to be using our Tamiya brush, and this has been dampened in a little Tamiya thinner. And just don't want to do any pulling yet on it. This is just to get some of the lighter rust stains. Just blotting it. Now we're just going to do a little light rusting using a little Vallejo light rust, and I've thinned it down with a little bit of water so it flows a little easier. And you just want to do it very subtly. You don't want to put too much on. Then you can, if you just lightly drag it down. Take a little break from some of the rusting and scratching. We're going to start working on the tracks here. We're going to start off using a little desert dust as a fixer, and we're going to use our light sienna as the actual pigment. And now these are rubber pad tracks, so we don't want a lot of dirt and stuff on the track itself. So we'll start applying this, making sure you get a lot on the insides of that, and then just kind of matting this in. And what we'll do is we'll wipe it off the actual pad itself after it sets up a little bit more. Just give you an idea what it's going to look like. And you have like the little bit of dirt and mud start to build, and it'll change dramatically once it starts to dry. So I'm going to go ahead and do the tracks right now and finish all those up. I'm going to add a little fresh oil stains using MIG's Enamel fresh oil stains, it's called. We're just going to put a small amount on here and then let it dry gradually. Even a little bit around the fuel fillers. And we'll let that dry, and you'll see how it'll change a little bit as it starts to dry. Now I'm going to put a layer of kind of like grimy looking stuff on it, and we're going to use Enamel streaking grime from MIG. And the way I like to put this on is just taking our flat brush, just dipped lightly in paint thinner. Just going to put one little quick layer right here on the edge just to wet that area down. Then using our streaking grime, and I know it's looking very, very thick, but don't worry, most of it is going to be coming off. Just put a decent layer right across the top here. And then using that same brush, just start streaking it down and taking the excess off. Now it takes a little bit of time getting all of the excess off here. And you have quite a bit of time too, because if it starts to dry too quickly on you, just wet the brush with a little paint thinner again. And we'll just gradually build this up. Now that the paint thinner is dried, you can see the nice effect that you get on here. I've also gone ahead and built and weathered up the rear brackets that we will go and attach with a little super glue on it right now. Put them on both sides. I guess these were pretty much interchangeable from one piece to another, but I've seen them in different areas, but this way it'll at least not cover up our star so much. Now we're going to use the Vallejo mud and grass, and we're going to pack a little mud and grass on the interior sides of the wells in here. I'm not going to go too heavy. Okay, before the mud and grass effect completely dries, we're going to use a little bit of our Vallejo pigment, the same sienna that we used on the track, and we're going to put a little bit on top of it and give it some dry highlights, as if some of the mud and grass effect has started to dry and turn into like a dustier color. I'm just going to show you a quick abbreviated approach on doing the bogies. It's basically going to be the exact same colors that we used on the upper hull, but we're going to blot them in with our paintbrush, and then after we've saturated between a little bit of light rust and streaking grime, we're going to go back with a paper towel and kind of blot out any of the excess. Now I know it looks a little heavy right now, and like I told you earlier, this dries flat and will really be subdued once we get it all put on there. Well, here we are. This is our completed model, and like I was telling you, you can see how the washes really fade down quite a bit and go really flat. I also put a little extra of like a rust and a grime over the number plates here, which I'll zoom in on, let you see. Really makes them pop out quite a bit, I think. And as we spin around here, kind of lower it down. Hopefully it can brighten this a little bit. There we go. So you can see inside the wheel cavities. Back to normal now. So this was a pretty simple kit to put together, not too difficult. There was a few parts that had a little trouble with fit, but nothing that can't be worked through. Really a lot of fun doing the weathering on this kit as well. That's getting to be the most fun part, is to paint and weather these vehicles. So I want to thank you as always for watching. This is a special video in the fact that it's our 100th video that I've uploaded. I really appreciate all of you watching all the videos that we've put out. And if you like what you saw, please subscribe and you'll never miss a new video.